The Force is light and full of shadows.
Before we dive in, check the link in the description if you want exclusive Timelines members-only videos you won't find on YouTube. All on our Patreon. The respirator breathes in, out, in, out. The sound of it fills the corridor before he does. That mechanical cadence, steady as a war drum, announcing Darth Vader the way lesser men are announced by title. The Naboo royal guard stationed at the mausoleum's entrance hears it first. Both men come to attention by instinct, hands tightening on ceremonial pikes that would do nothing, that they know would do nothing, and yet the body insists on the pretense of readiness. Vader does not look at them. He walks past them the way weather passes through a doorway, not aggressive, not dismissive, simply unstoppable, a force of physics, not intention. They do not stop him. They cannot. The doors open, he enters alone. The mausoleum holds light differently than the world outside. Naboo's afternoon sun falls through the ceiling apertures in long diagonal shafts, each one catching stone dust and old pollen suspended in the air, tiny constellations turning slowly, going nowhere. The walls are cream marble veined with green, polished to a depth that makes them seem lit from within. At the joins between carved archways, bioluminescent moss clings in pale clusters, patient and blue-white, waiting for nightfall to matter. It is beautiful. He hates it. He hates how beautiful it is. He hates that she deserved it. His footsteps on the mirrored floor are wrong, too heavy, too mechanical, each step a small detonation in a space built for quiet. The distant roar of the Theed waterfalls enters through the walls as a vibration more than a sound, a constant low tremor felt in the breastplate of his suit, in the bones beneath the suit that are his, still, technically his. He can feel the falls. He cannot feel anything else. He has been here twice before. Once, when they brought her body home, and the city laid flowers along every processional route for 3 kilometers, and he watched from high orbit on a shuttle no one knew he had diverted. He did not land that time. He could not. The second time was 3 years later, 3 standard years into the Empire, when a mission brought him within a single hyperspace jump, and he told himself it was strategic. A route deviation within acceptable parameters, and stood outside the doors for 11 minutes and left. This is the 3rd time. 9 years after Mustafar. He does not know why this time is different. He only knows it is. The casket rests on its low stone plinth at the chamber's center, white stone catching the light from above, her name carved into the panel facing the entrance, so it is the first thing anyone sees when they enter. Senator, Queen, beloved of her people, flowers along the plinth's base, fresh ones recently placed, Naboo wild lilies and pale violet. Someone came this morning. Someone comes regularly. The planet has not forgotten her. Vader stands at the casket's edge and does not move for a long time. Inside the helmet, his breathing fills everything. In, out, the sound of a man still alive inside a machine that requires constant justification. His right hand rises, stops, drops. He has not touched it, not yet. There is no tactical reason to be here. There is no mission parameter, no intelligence objective, no strategic advantage to be extracted from standing in a dead woman's memorial on a planet that smells of waterfalls and old stone. If Palpatine knew, if any of the 12 Imperials who track Vader's movements knew, there would be questions he does not have answers for. He filed the diversion as a surveillance operation, a routine sweep of Naboo's Imperial compliance posture. Plausible. Unverifiable. He has been lying to Palpatine for 9 years in the small ways, the administrative ways, and the Emperor has never looked closely enough. He has never given him reason to look closely. His hand rises again. This time, it does not stop. The gauntlet, black durasteel, servo-assisted, capable of crushing transperisteel, closes around the edge of the casket lid with a gentleness the suit was not designed for. The servos whine faintly under the reduced load, confused by the instruction. He ignores them. He lowers his head. He has not prayed since he was 9 years old, and his mother told him that the desert had gods in it if you were quiet enough to hear them. He was never quiet enough. He was always too much, too loud, too fast, too hungry for the next thing. He is not praying now. He doesn't know what he is doing. He is only standing at the edge of the one place in the galaxy where Darth Vader is, undeniably, a lie. His fingers find the seam of the casket lid. He does not open it. He has not come here to open it. He tells himself this. He tells himself he came only to stand here, only to be present in the physical space where she rests, as though proximity were a form of accountability, as though standing here often enough might constitute some form of answer to the question of what he owes her, which is everything, which is a word with no practical content. But his fingers find the seam, and the force, which he has kept carefully, deliberately numb for 9 years, tamped down and redirected into rage and duty and the perpetual forward motion of the Empire's machine, moves. Not dramatically, not with a surge or a wave. It moves the way grief moves when it has been contained too long. It finds the crack and it enters. He opens the casket. She is exactly as she was. Naboo preservation techniques, the same arts that kept their ancient queens intact for centuries, have held her here in something that is not sleep, but resembles it. Her face is still. Her hands are folded. The gown they buried her in is dark, rich Naboo blue, and her hair has been arranged the way it was for state occasions. She would have hated it. She always said the formal arrangements gave her headaches, and around her folded hands, resting against her fingers, the Japar snippet. He carved it when he was 9 years old, in the hold of a ship between Tatooine and Coruscant, with a piece of scrap bone and a borrowed tool, and the specific focused desperation of a child trying to give something to a girl he couldn't afford to give anything to. He carved protection symbols into it, desert patterns, safe passage, reunion, things he half believed in and half invented on the spot because he was 9, and the distinction hadn't mattered yet. She kept it her entire life. She was buried with it. His hand is shaking. The suit registers the tremor in the servo diagnostics and logs it as a calibration anomaly, and he ignores it the way he ignores everything the suit tells him about his own body, which is all of it, which is constantly. He lifts the snippet from her hands. It is so small it fits in the center of his palm and still has room. Cream pale, faintly warm even now, the cord worn smooth with decades of contact. He can see the tool marks where he worked it, uneven, earnest, the marks of a child's hands that have not yet learned to be ashamed of trying. He holds it. The force moves again. Something in the snippet resonates. A faint vibration, not mechanical, felt not in the palm of his hand, but in the chest, behind the breastplate, behind the respirator, in whatever is left of the body that used to be his before the suit. A resonance he has no category for. And then he hears her voice. It does not come through the auditory processors. It comes through something older, something the suit cannot instrument or intercept. It comes the way the Force always comes when it is working correctly, from inside out, from the living world inward, through the practitioner, bypassing every constructed defense. Obi-Wan, there is good in him. The mausoleum does not change. The light does not change. The waterfalls continue their distant percussion, and the dust motes continue their slow turning, and the moss continues its blue-white patience on the walls. Nothing changes. Everything changes. I know there's still. And then the breath, the last breath, the unfinished sentence. She did not finish. She ran out of air before she could finish telling Obi-Wan Kenobi that Anakin Skywalker was worth saving. And that is the detail that undoes him. Not the words, not the voice, but the space after the voice. The silence where her lungs gave out mid-sentence, mid-belief, mid-defense of the man who had just tried to end her. She spent her last breath on him, not on her children, not on herself, not on the republic she had fought for, or Naboo, or any of the 1,000 things she had loved with her whole enormous precise heart. She spent her last breath trying to tell someone that Anakin Skywalker still had good in him. Palpatine's voice returns from 9 years ago. You killed her. Your anger. Your hands. You did this. He believed it. He believed it because it was the kind of true thing he deserved, and because grief, in those first weeks inside the suit, had no room for investigation. He believed it, and he built himself around it, made it the load-bearing wall of everything that came after, made it the reason that Darth Vader continued to exist, because Anakin Skywalker had destroyed the only person who could forgive him, so Anakin Skywalker had to be destroyed too. It was a lie. Not a partial lie, not a misdirection. A deliberate, engineered, precise lie, told by a man who understood that Anakin Skywalker's love was the most dangerous force in the galaxy and needed to be converted into something safe, something manageable, something that kept the machine running and the apprentice compliant. She survived the choking. She survived it, spoke at Polis Massa, used her last coherent breath to defend him, and died of a broken heart that believed, even at the end, that there was something left inside the wreckage worth saving. He has spent 9 years proving her wrong. The snippet is warm in his hand, the mausoleum holds its light. The falls roar their distant, constant roar. Darth Vader stands in the silence of what he has just understood. He does not weep. The suit has no mechanism for it. The body beneath the suit is too damaged, too rebuilt, too far removed from the easy physics of grief to perform that particular function. But his hand closes around the Japar snippet, gentle, the way the suit was not built to be, and something in his chest that has been burning for 9 years goes very, very quiet. What is left in the silence is not peace. It is not forgiveness. It is not anything so clean or so finished. It is clarity, and clarity for the first time in 9 years is enough. He will not leave it here. He closes the casket. He walks back through the mausoleum's light, past the stone and the moss and the flowers someone placed this morning, past the guards who come back to attention and do not meet his eyes. He walks into Naboo's afternoon. The respirator breathes. In, out. In, out. A man still alive who has just been given for the first time a reason to remain so. 3 days after Naboo, Vader kneels before the Emperor's throne. The audience chamber devours light the way the mausoleum offered it. Black imperial stone chosen to make every visitor feel small. Red-robed guards immobile at perfect intervals. Palpatine descends 3 steps. No more, a calculated distance. Still elevated. Lord Vader, you diverted your return route. Compliance assessment. The garrison has been underreporting population metrics. And was the assessment satisfactory? The garrison will be replaced. The audience chamber is everything Naboo was not. Where the mausoleum held light carefully, reverently, in long golden shafts that touched the floor like offerings, this room devours it. The ceiling vaults into darkness that the palace's architects never bothered to illuminate. The walls are black stone, imperial black, the kind of black chosen not for aesthetics, but for the specific psychological work of making every visitor feel small. Red-robed guards line the chamber in perfect intervals, immobile as statuary, force pikes grounded. The Emperor sits elevated on his throne, 12 steps above the floor, so that everyone who enters must look up. Vader does not look up, he kneels. My lord. The word costs nothing, he has said it 10,000 times. The voice modulator takes whatever is in his chest and converts it to the same flat mechanical register it always produces. No inflection, no texture, no information the Emperor did not place there himself. Palpatine has never heard Vader's real voice. He has heard the suit's voice, which is a different instrument entirely, built and maintained by the same hands that built the suit's pain interfaces, and calibrated them deliberately high. The Emperor rises from his throne with the unhurried economy of a man who has nowhere else to be, and has never needed to be anywhere other than exactly here. Lord Vader. The voice is warm. It is always warm. The warmth is the most dangerous thing about him, the specific, cultivated warmth of a man who understood, decades ago, that cruelty lands harder when it arrives from a comfortable temperature. You diverted your return route. A surveillance sweep of Naboo, your report said. Compliance assessment. The garrison has been underreporting population metrics. Palpatine descends the first 3 steps. No more. He stops there, a calculated distance, still elevated. His yellow eyes move across Vader with the particular attention of a man checking a machine for wear. And was the assessment satisfactory? The garrison will be replaced. Of course it will. A faint smile at the corner of his mouth. Not warmth, the echo of warmth used as punctuation. He studies Vader for another moment. Then, you seem quiet, Lord Vader. 3 days ago, Vader would have known what to say to this. He would have produced the expected register, cold, clipped, faintly contemptuous. The affect Palpatine had shaped across 9 years of careful management, the Vader who occupied the exact space the Emperor needed him to occupy. He would have been that without effort, because that was all he was. Now the performance requires construction. He constructs it. I am always quiet, my lord. Palpatine looks at him for a long moment. This is the thing about the Emperor that men who have never stood before him fail to understand. He does not look at you the way other people do. He looks through you. He probes, not with obvious force intrusion, but with something subtler. The accumulated technique of a Sith, who has spent decades reading people as instruments and knows exactly which string to pluck to hear the hidden note. Vader gives him nothing to find. This is new. Not the act of concealment. He has concealed things from Palpatine before, minor things, strategic withholdings, the small administrative lies. But those concealments were active. They required pressure, a deliberate holding of something back against a current that wanted to take it. What he is doing now is different. He is not holding anything back. He is simply empty. The grief that drove the dark side channel has gone quiet in his chest, and in its absence, there is no current to resist. He is a door with no room behind it. The Emperor pushes and finds only wall. Palpatine, after a moment, seems satisfied. This concerns Vader more than suspicion would have. There is a matter on Lothal, the Emperor says, descending the remaining steps at last, moving toward the great viewport that dominates the chamber's far wall. Below, Coruscant spreads in every direction to the horizon, city without edge, light without end, 10 trillion lives arranged for the Emperor's comfort. He clasps his hands behind his back and regards it with the expression of a man reviewing an adequate garden, an insurgency cell, small, disorganized. They have been interfering with the Imperial Academy's recruitment quotas. He pauses. I want them ended. I will send the 500 first. I want you to go. Vader's processing runs the calculation. Lothal is insignificant. A cell small enough to assign to the 500 first does not require Vader's personal attention. This is a fundamental principle of Imperial resource allocation that Palpatine understands as well as Vader does. He is being sent because the Emperor wants him occupied, wants him moving, wants him in a place that is not whatever quiet space 3 days on Naboo might have introduced into his effect. As my lord commands. Palpatine turns from the viewport. The yellow eyes settle on him with something that is not quite a question. Tell me, Lord Vader, do you dream? The chamber holds the question in its dark ceiling for a moment. The guards do not move. The city below continues its 10 trillion life hum, indifferent. Vader considers the Emperor. The man is fishing. He does not know what he is fishing for. This is the probe Vader anticipated, the delayed version, arriving now in the form of a casual question rather than a direct intrusion, because Palpatine is a man who prefers to let people step into their own traps. The Sith do not dream, Vader says. We remember. Palpatine holds his gaze for 3 full seconds. Then the smile returns, real this time, or the nearest thing to real that Palpatine's face can produce. He is pleased by the answer. It sounds like doctrine. It sounds like a man who is exactly where the Emperor left him, dismissed. Vader walks the corridor outside the throne room alone. The palace was a Jedi temple once. He knows this corridor, he knows the specific acoustics of it, the way sound carries in the high stone passage, the way footsteps used to sound different when the floors held the weight of 1,000 Jedi rather than the weight of Imperial bureaucrats who keep their eyes down when he passes. The temple's bones are still here, under the renovation, under the black Imperial stone laid over the older foundations. If he reaches into the living force, which he does not do, not here, not openly, he thinks he might still feel the echo of what was built here over 10,000 years. All that accumulated intention, all those generations of people trying very hard to be better than their nature. He does not reach for it. He keeps his hands at his sides and he walks, and the respirator breathes, and the bureaucrats find other corridors when they hear him coming. In, out. The performance in the throne room was not difficult. It was not easy either, but not difficult. This is important data. He has spent 9 years being Darth Vader so completely, so totally, that the performance has long since ceased to feel like performance. It simply was. The suit was not a costume. The modulated voice was not a voice he chose. The cold contempt was not a posture he adopted. Except that it was. Except that all of it was built, brick by Palpatine's design and his own grief. And he can see the construction now from the outside, the way you can only see a building's structure once you are standing far enough away from it. The woman in the mausoleum believed something was still inside him. He is beginning to think she was not wrong. He is not ready to think this clearly. He is not ready to name what the alternative to Darth Vader is, because the last time that name existed it ended in fire on a black volcanic shore and a dead woman and 9 years of machine sound where his breathing used to be. He is not ready, but he is thinking, and thinking, for the first time in 9 years, in a direction other than forward and downward, is something. His quarters in the palace are sparse, deliberately, a meditation chamber. A work surface. A viewport facing west, away from the Senate toward the lower city, where the light dies in layers as it descends through the kilometers of built structure above the surface. He goes here after the throne room. He stands at the viewport for a long time. He does not remove his helmet here. He removes it only in the sealed meditation chamber, in the pressurized space where he can breathe without the suit's processors, and where Palpatine cannot enter without announcing himself, and even then cannot surveil. He will not go to the meditation chamber yet. Not tonight. Tonight he needs to think inside the mask, where thinking has always happened, where Darth Vader thinks, in tactical sequences and mission parameters and the precise calculation of Imperial compliance, because what he is deciding requires that register. It requires the coldest, most precise version of himself. The snippet is against his chest, inside the suit, against the interface panels, between the breastplate and the inner layer of the environmental system. It has no business being there. It is organic material in a machine built to be sterile. It will degrade the filtration sensors over time if he leaves it. He knows this. He left it there anyway. He makes the first decision. He will not change, not visibly, not in any way that Palpatine can register or track or map against a timeline. Darth Vader will remain exactly what Palpatine expects him to be. Cold, compliant, total. The 501st will go to Lothal. He will go to Lothal. He will conduct the operation with the efficiency the Emperor's records will confirm. He will return and report, and kneel. The mask stays on. The mask has to stay on, because beneath it, something is beginning to move. He doesn't know yet what it will become. He knows only that it is his, not Palpatine's, not the suit's, not the grief engine the Emperor built and calibrated and maintained for 9 years. His. The respirator breathes, in, out. For the first time it sounds less like punishment and more like patience. The meditation chamber seals with a pressure differential he feels in the damaged tissue of his chest before the instruments confirm it. A soft hiss, a click. The outer world, the palace, the empire, the performance, drops away on the other side of a door that even Palpatine would need to announce himself before opening. He removes the helmet. The air inside the chamber is filtered, temperature regulated, fed through a separate atmospheric processor that has nothing to do with the suit. He breathes it with the scarred remnants of lungs that were once capable of things the suit's medical logs still mark as extraordinary. Respiratory capacity in the 98th percentile for a human male, his height. Before Mustafar reduced that figure to something the Imperial physicians, recording the reconstruction, chose not to show him. He breathes without the modulator's rhythm imposing itself. His own breath, ragged and lower than it used to be, a sound no one in the galaxy has heard in 9 years. He sits. The chamber is dark. He does not require light. He requires the absence of everything else. The palace's background hum, the constant data stream the suit pipes into his peripheral awareness, the specific psychic weight of Palpatine's proximity, which exists as a pressure Vader is always aware of and never entirely free of, the way a body is always aware of a bruise. He opens his right hand. The Japor snippet rests against his palm, warm, as it was in the mausoleum. He does not know why it is warm. He knows, mechanically, that organic material at ambient temperature should not feel warm. But the Force has its own physics, and he stopped arguing with it at 9 years old when it first showed him things it had no business showing a child. He sits with it. This is what the next hour is. Not planning, not calculation. Not the war room sequence his mind defaults to when given a problem. He sits and he holds the snippet, and he lets the mausoleum happen again. Not the visual memory, the other one. The one that does not live in his auditory processors or his visual cortex, but somewhere older, somewhere the suit cannot reach. There is good in him. I know there's still. He does not let himself want it to be true. That is not the exercise. The exercise is to hold the fact of it, to sit with the specific, verifiable fact that she was alive at Polis Massa, that she spoke, that the words she chose were not recrimination and not grief, and not the name of her children, but his defense, and to let that fact exist without immediately converting it into either ammunition or wound. He has been using pain as information for 9 years. Pain says, "You are Darth Vader." Pain says, Anakin Skywalker ended on Mustafar, and what remains is the machine and the mission. Pain says, there is nothing to return to and therefore nowhere to go but forward, always forward, into the Empire's next problem. She said there is good in him, not was, is. Present tense, 9 years ago, in the moment she was dying. He thinks about what it costs to say a thing like that. He thinks about Obi-Wan Kenobi sitting beside her in that medical bay on Polis Massa, a man who had just watched his apprentice, his brother, attempt to murder the woman he loved. And she used her remaining breath to tell him that Anakin was not finished. He thinks about what Obi-Wan must have felt, holding that, choosing to preserve it instead of letting it die with her. The audio crystal is not the act of a man with certainty. It is the act of a man with only hope, doing the only thing hope can do when it has no power. It waits. Obi-Wan has been waiting 9 years. The thought arrives without the rage he expects it to arrive with. He has hated Obi-Wan Kenobi with the systematic, structural hatred of a man who needed somewhere to put the blame that would not collapse under the weight of it. Obi-Wan on Mustafar. Obi-Wan walking away. Obi-Wan who left him burning and took his children and disappeared into the galaxy's margins, while Vader rebuilt himself, plate by plate, into something that could survive. The hatred is still there, but it is smaller than it was yesterday. It does not fill the space it used to fill. What fills the space instead is something harder to hold. The understanding that Obi-Wan could not save Anakin on Mustafar. Not because he didn't try, he tried, in the only way available to him, which was the one thing Anakin could not hear at the time. He told him the truth. And the truth was the one thing Anakin in that moment was constitutionally incapable of receiving. He turns the snippet over in his palm. Once. Twice. He makes the second decision. It is not a simple decision. It is not a declaration or a revelation or anything that would look from the outside like a pivot point. It is quieter than that. It is the kind of decision that does not announce itself because it does not need to, because it is not about what he will do next week or next year. It is about what he will be. Underneath the mask, in the chamber where no one can see, he will be the man she said was still there. Not Anakin Skywalker exactly. That name belongs to a boy who no longer exists in any form that matters. The boy burned away on Mustafar as completely as the flesh did, and he is not naive enough to think grief and a recording can resurrect him. He cannot go back. The suit will not allow it. The body will not allow it. 9 years of choices compound into a structure you do not simply dismantle. But the structure can be turned. He knows engineering. He knows, with the specific, bone-deep understanding of a man who has been rebuilding machines since childhood, that a structure in motion can be redirected without being destroyed. The same force, the same mass, the same momentum. A different vector. A change so incremental that nothing observing from outside would mark the moment of adjustment. Only the destination changes. Palpatine built Darth Vader to enforce the Empire. Darth Vader, redirected, can dismantle it. From inside, from every access point, the suit and the rank and the Emperor's own trust have opened across 9 years of perfect obedient service. He will not do it loudly. He will not challenge Palpatine in the throne room, or disappear to join some nascent resistance cell that would not know what to do with him, and would likely try to execute him on arrival. He will not do any of the things that would make for a better story and a shorter life. He will do it the way she would have done it, the way she did do it, for years, from inside the Senate, with patience and precision, and the specific cold intelligence of someone who understood that the most dangerous thing a person can be, inside a corrupt system, is competent. He will be the most reliable instrument the Empire has, until he isn't. The insurgency cell on Lothal is exactly as reported. Small, disorganized, operating out of a decommissioned fuel depot in the agricultural district south of Capital City. 11 individuals, 2 former Republic officers, 3 local laborers, 6 others of varying background. They have a single transport, 3 crates of salvaged blaster rifles, and the specific desperate optimism of people who have decided that doing something is better than doing nothing, regardless of the odds. Vader stands at the depot's edge in the pre-dawn dark and looks at the structure with the 501st deployed behind him in a containment perimeter that nothing alive is leaving through. He thinks about what he is here to do, then he thinks about what he could do instead. The calculation takes 40 seconds. It is not a moral calculation. Morality is not yet a register he has full access to, and he does not pretend otherwise. It is a strategic one. 11 people. Their deaths serve Palpatine. Their survival serves nothing except themselves, unless it serves something larger. He thinks about intelligence networks. He thinks about the nascent cellular structures that Imperial analysts have been tracking in 3 mid-rim systems, structures that are currently too small and too scattered to constitute a threat, but that the math suggests will not remain so. He thinks about who might need in some future configuration he cannot yet fully map, a Darth Vader who sometimes arrives and finds the cell gone. Not escaped. Gone. No bodies. No evidence. Nothing that triggers an investigation, because an investigation would find the scenes in the story. He keys the 501st's command channel. The depot is empty, he says. The cell relocated. Intelligence failure at the source. Log it and prepare to withdraw. A pause on the channel. Commander Bren, veteran of the Clone Wars, 3 campaigns under Vader's command, a man who has never once questioned an order and would not begin tonight. Confirmed, Lord Vader. Logging now. He stays at the depot's edge for another moment after the acknowledgement. Inside, through walls he can feel with the Force, the way his engineering instinct feels stress in a structure. 11 people are very still and very quiet. One of them is crying silently, with the particular discipline of someone who has had practice at it. They do not know how close it was. They will never know. He turns away from the depot and walks back through the pre-dawn dark toward the shuttle. The 501st falls into withdrawal formation without a word. The fuel depot does not exist in tonight's after-action report. It is nothing. In the scale of what the Empire is, 11 lives on a backwater agricultural planet constitute nothing, a rounding error in a system that has ended worlds. It is the first thing the respirator breathes. In, out. He boards the shuttle. The ramp seals. Lothal's dark horizon tilts away beneath him as the craft rises, and somewhere in the fuel depot below, 11 people are beginning to understand that they are, inexplicably, still alive. He has a direction now. He has a vector. It is not forgiveness. He is not fool enough to think he gets that. It is not redemption, which is a word for people whose debts can be calculated and paid. It is a vow, made in a sealed chamber on Coruscant, to a woman who cannot hear it, to a belief she held in her last 12 words, in her last conscious breath. He will make her right. However long it takes, however many Lothals it requires, however perfectly he must perform Darth Vader in the light, so that Anakin Skywalker can work in the dark. He comes to Naboo without the 501st, an irregularity filed under a standing personal security audit authorization he requested 14 months ago, and has used twice for exactly what he claimed, building a pattern that makes the third use invisible. He lands and walks into Theed alone. The city breathes the way the Empire never does. The streets follow the curve of the land rather than the logic of an imperial grid. Open plazas, arched colonnades, the sound of water threading through every quarter from the falls that feed the city's canal system. Citizens move, without the particular tension that defines Coruscant's lower levels, without the sideways calculations of people navigating a city that watches them. Naboo is the Emperor's homeworld, and wears its preferential treatment lightly, the way a kept thing wears its cage when the cage is gilded well enough. He does not enjoy the walk. He is not built for enjoyment. But he notes, with the part of him that is still Anakin Skywalker and always will be, that she loved this city, that she walked these streets for years as queen and senator and private citizen, and knew the name of every canal district, that she is buried here because she would not have wanted to be anywhere else. The safe house is in the textile quarter, 3rd floor of a building that faces the canal, the entrance marked by nothing at all, which is itself a mark, if you know what absence looks like when it is deliberate. He found it the same way he found the Lothal cell, through the Force, and through the specific intelligence that comes from 9 years of reading Imperial surveillance reports, with the secondary attention of a man cataloging everything the Empire has not yet found. The Amidalans are careful. They are not careful enough for Darth Vader, but they were never expecting Darth Vader to be looking for them in order to help. He climbs the stairs without announcing himself. The door at the top is locked with a mechanism that takes him 4 seconds to override. He does not hurry. He steps inside. Sabé is standing at the window with a blaster already drawn. She is faster than he expected. She had it up before he cleared the threshold. Not the reaction of someone surprised, but the reaction of someone who heard him on the stairs and made a decision about what she was willing to do about it. The weapon does not waver. Her face does not waver. She is looking at the mask with the particular expression of someone who has rehearsed this moment and is discovering that rehearsal and reality occupy different rooms. 3 others are in the space behind her. 2 have weapons. 1, older near the far wall, does not. Dorme. He recognizes her from the Senate years, from the years when she moved at Padmé's periphery with the quiet competence of someone whose job was to make sure nothing interrupted the senator's work. She is looking at him with an expression that has no name in Basic. Sabé speaks first. You have 30 seconds to give me a reason. Her voice is controlled. The control is the most telling thing about it. The specific flatness of someone pressing very hard on something that wants to move. He knows her file. He knows what she has spent the years since Padmé's death doing, and he knows what it costs a person to stand in a room with the man responsible for that death and keep their hands steady. He reaches into the suit. Both armed Amidalans shift. Sabé's finger moves to the trigger guard without crossing it. He withdraws the Japor snippet. The room changes. Not dramatically. Sabé does not lower the weapon immediately. She does not make a sound. But something passes across her face. Something that starts in her eyes and moves downward through her expression like a fracture finding its path. And for one moment, the controlled grief she has been carrying like professional equipment becomes visible underneath. Just for a moment. Then it goes back under. Where did you get that? She says. Not a question. Her casket. You opened her casket. Yes. She stares at him for a long time. The blaster is still up. He does not move. He holds the snippet where she can see it. And he waits. Because this is her calculation to make, not his. And he has learned, is learning, imperfectly, in pieces, that there are situations where the correct tactical move is to be still, and let another person arrive at their own conclusion. You came alone, she says. Yes. No 500 first. No ISB. No recording. No. Another long silence. He can feel her in the force. Grief and fury and the specific anguish of someone who loved a person deeply enough that the person's absence has restructured everything. The way a missing load-bearing wall restructures a building without necessarily collapsing it. She has been carrying Padmé's absence as architecture for years. She built herself around it. He recognizes the design. Say something I can believe, Sabé says. He considers what Darth Vader would say, which is nothing, because Darth Vader does not explain himself to resistance cells in textile quarter safe houses. He considers what Anakin Skywalker would say, which is probably too much, too fast, with too much need underneath it. He considers what the truth is. She was alive at Polis Massa, he says. After, she spoke. Palpatine told me she didn't. He told me she died in my hands, from what I did to her on Mustafar. That was a lie. I did not know it was a lie until 4 days ago. No one in the room moves. She said. He stops. The modulator takes the pause and flattens it into silence. He begins again. She used her last breath to tell Kenobi that there was still good in me. Those were her last words. She died defending me to the man who watched me try to kill her. Sabé's jaw tightens. Her eyes are very bright, the brightness of someone refusing a specific biological function through force of will. Why are you telling me this? Because I need you to believe what I am about to ask you to do, and you cannot believe it without understanding why I am doing it. And what are you asking? Nothing yet. Today I am only telling you that I am going to dismantle the Empire from inside it. I am going to take 9 years of Palpatine's trust and use every access point it has opened, and turn it against everything he has built. I am going to do this slowly, without announcement, in ways that will be invisible until they are not. When the time comes that I need your networks, I will contact you. When I do, I need you to consider the request, rather than immediately refuse it. Sabé looks at the snippet in his hand. She looks at his face, the mask, the only face he has now, and he thinks she is doing what she trained her entire life to do, reading what is underneath the surface of a person, finding the truth beneath the performance. You let the Lothal cell go, she says. He does not ask how she knows. She is Sabé. She has networks. Yes, that was you. Yes. She lowers the blaster. Not all the way. She holds it at her side. Not holstered, not aimed. The middle position of a woman who has made a partial decision and is being honest about its limits. I don't forgive you, she says. I want you to understand that clearly. Not for her, not for any of it. What you were, what you did. I don't have the authority to forgive that, and I wouldn't offer it if I did. I know, but she believed in you. The words cost her something visible. She believed in you when none of the rest of us could. And if she was right, she stops, starts again. If she was right, then arguing with her judgment is the one thing I am not willing to do. Even now, he closes his hand around the snippet. Keep your networks intact, he says. Keep your people off Coruscant's primary surveillance grid. Stay small and stay quiet and stay ready. I will not contact you again until I have something worth the risk. He turns toward the door. Anakin. He stops. The name lands in the suit like something thrown hard at a surface that was not built to receive it. He does not turn around. She was right about you, Sabe says. She was right about everything. It was the one thing I could never forgive her for. A pause. Don't make her wrong. He walks out. The stairs, the canal street, the city that loved her. The respirator breathes. In, out. He has an ally now. He has a direction and a vow, and one person in the galaxy who knows and has chosen, not forgiveness, not trust, not anything so generous, simply to not yet close the door. It is enough. It is exactly enough. He does not need more than that. He needs to deserve more than that. He becomes very good at being nothing. This is the chapter no one will ever write about him. Not the historians, not the imperial propagandists, not whatever passes for record-keeping, in whatever comes after the Empire falls. There will be no documented account of the years between the vow and the reckoning. History records events. What Anakin Skywalker does in these years is not an event. It is a process, the kind of thing that only becomes visible in retrospect, when someone lays the data across a long enough timeline and notices that the pattern of Vader's failures is not random. It is not random. The rebel cell on Atollon has been in place for 11 months before Imperial intelligence locates the general region of their base. The report crosses Vader's desk because all high-priority rebel intelligence does. Palpatine established this protocol in the Empire's first year, understanding that Vader's tactical intuition processes threat assessments faster than any analytical division. It is a gift Palpatine gave himself. It has become something else. Vader reviews the file for 6 minutes. The cell is larger than Lothal, better organized, former Republic officers in command, a functioning supply chain, the early architecture of something that could, given time, constitute an actual operational problem. The file recommends a full sector sweep, 3 Star Destroyers, the 501st, complete suppression. He forwards the file with a single annotation. Coordinates unverified. Recommend ground confirmation before committing capital assets. Reassign surveillance to Sector 7 pending verification. Sector 7 contains nothing. Sector 7 has contained nothing for 8 years. The surveillance assignment will run its standard 90-day cycle, produce a null report, and be archived. Atollon has 90 days. He does not know what they will do with the time. He does not follow up. He moves to the next item on his desk, and somewhere in the Atollon system, people who have never heard his name and would not thank him if they had, are given a season they did not expect to have. The light side does not return the way he expected. He expected something recognizable, the force as it felt at 19, that enormous kinetic aliveness that made him feel like the galaxy's center of gravity sat somewhere in his own chest. A door reopening, a volume knob turned back up. It does not come back that way. It comes back the way circulation returns to a limb that has been compressed too long, in pieces, unevenly, with a specific unpleasant sensation that is neither pain nor relief. It comes back in his meditation chamber, in the hours between midnight and dawn, when the palace is as close to silent as Coruscant ever gets. Small things first. The sense of the building around him, not its structure but its life, the 10,000 biological processes of everyone in it, the hum of metabolism and sleep, the specific electrical signature of dreaming minds. He has not felt this since before Mustafar. He had forgotten that the Force, at its most fundamental, feels like company. He sits in the dark and breathes his ragged real breath, and does not reach for power, he reaches for stillness. Obi-Wan's form. Obi-Wan's teaching, which he resisted for 13 years with the specific stubbornness of a student who was always too gifted to believe he needed to master the boring parts. Sorsu, the perfect defense, not a fighting style really, a philosophy in combat form. You do not attack, you endure. You create the conditions in which your opponent's aggression becomes their undoing. He practices endurance. He is, it turns out, very good at it. 9 years inside a painful suit has prepared him for this with an efficiency that is almost funny. Almost. The labor facility on Kessel processes spice and processes people. This is not a secret. It is simply not discussed. His visit is logged as an efficiency inspection. Imperial spice production has been running below projected output, a gap large enough to generate a budget inquiry. He arrives. He reviews the facility's operational parameters with the commandant, a man named Tresson, who has the particular careful blankness of someone who does not want to be looked at too closely, and has arranged his entire personality around that goal. Vader looks at him very closely. He does not do anything dramatic. He does not free anyone. That would be visible, would put the facility's records in direct conflict with his after-action report. He does something smaller. He accesses the labor registry and marks a group of individuals as security risks requiring immediate transfer to a different Imperial assignment. The destination he specifies is a construction depot on Garrel. Nominal Imperial territory, light supervision, the kind of place where a person with any resourcefulness could walk away from their assignment inside 2 weeks and disappear into a mid-rim city that does not look too hard at new arrivals. The commandant signs the transfer order without question because Vader signed it first and no one questions Vader's security assessments. The production gap on Kessel remains largely unresolved. He files a report recommending equipment upgrades and leaves Tresson with the strong impression that he was thoroughly investigated and found adequate. Tresson will spend months being grateful and looking the wrong direction. The files are the work. This is what no one understands about power at the Imperial scale. It is not exercised through grand gestures. It is exercised through paperwork, through the endless river of reports and assessments and authorizations that flow across the desks of the Empire's senior leadership every day. Each one a small decision that aggregates with 1,000 other small decisions into the shape of what the Empire does. Vader is at the center of this flow. He has always been at the center of it. Palpatine put him there. He reads everything. He always has. Palpatine valued this, the thoroughness of his file review. He still reads everything, but now with a secondary register running beneath the primary assessment, a quiet parallel analysis asking a different question than the one the file presents. Not, what does this threat require? But, what does this threat need to survive? The 501st arrives late to a rendezvous on Ord Mantell. The delay is logged as a navigation miscalculation. A supply convoy designated for an Imperial outpost on Christophus is misdirected to a secondary depot rather than the primary. The misdirection is logged as a clerical error. A squadron of TIE fighters assigned to suppress a freighter running unsanctioned cargo through the Rima trade route is given coordinates precisely 1 sector off from the freighter's actual position. The error is not discovered until the freighter has cleared the checkpoint. None of these events, examined individually, suggests anything except ordinary Imperial operational friction. Organizations of sufficient scale produce error at a predictable rate. Vader's error rate across this period is, in fact, lower than the Imperial average. The errors are simply targeted. He does not think of it as sabotage. Sabotage suggests sudden force applied to a structural point. What he is doing is more patient than that. Introducing specific tolerances into a machine, ensuring that when the machine is stressed, as it will be, the stress will find the tolerances and the tolerances will give. He learned this from her, not explicitly. He never watched her work closely enough, never paid the right quality of attention when she was in the Senate chambers late at night, building coalitions and drafting amendment language, doing the slow, invisible labor of someone trying to save a democracy from inside its own corruption. He was not paying that kind of attention then. He is paying it now. Retroactively, he is doing what she did in an arena she would never have recognized as hers. And he understands her in this work with an intimacy that years of marriage could not provide because he was never still enough to see it. He sees it now. The snippet is against his chest. Always against his chest. He is aware of it the way he is aware of the suit's pain interfaces. Constantly, without drama, a fact of his physical existence he has incorporated into his baseline rather than fighting against. It is warm. It is always warm. He does not examine why. He has become in these years a man who accepts what the Force offers without demanding that it make sense in engineering terms. The stars outside the viewport do not move. One of the fundamental optical illusions of deep space travel, one he stopped noticing decades ago. He notices it tonight. He stands at the viewport for a long time after the day's work is finished. 3 file reviews, 1 strategic recommendation subtly wrong in 1 specific coordinate. 1 501st deployment order that will arrive minutes after its window. Small, invisible. The ghost in the machine, conducting his patient, unremarkable haunting. He has been dead since Mustafar, in all the ways that matter. The ghost is just now learning to use his hands. The respirator breathes. In. Out. Somewhere in the galaxy, in the spaces his errors have opened, people are alive who should not be. Cells are intact that should be ash. Convoys have slipped through checkpoints that should have caught them. The rebellion is growing and does not know why its margins are slightly better than they should be, why the Imperial response is occasionally, inexplicably, one beat too slow. It does not need to know. It only needs to survive long enough to matter. He has no operational reason to be on Tatooine. He has constructed one, anyway, an inspection of the Imperial garrison at Anchorhead, a cursory review of Spice Route security through the outer rim corridor that passes within a single hyperspace jump of the system. The paperwork is clean. The authorization chain is complete. He has become, across these years, very precise at building the administrative scaffolding that makes an absence look like a presence, and a deviation look like protocol. The shuttle sets down 12 kilometers from the Lars Moisture Farm at the hour before dawn. He walks the rest. Tatooine at pre-dawn is its own specific silence. The cold comes down hard when the sun's set on a desert world. People who have never been to one are surprised by this, expecting heat to be continuous, not understanding that a planet without moisture cannot hold warmth once the source withdraws. The sand retains nothing. He knows this. He grew up knowing this, woke to it every morning for 9 years in the slave quarters of Watto's shop. The chill before the twin suns climbed, and the heat began its daily assault. He walks through it and does not feel the cold. The suit maintains its internal temperature with mechanical indifference to climate. He is always exactly the same temperature. He has not felt weather in many years. He notes this the way he notes everything now, as data, as something that goes in the secondary register, the quiet parallel account he maintains of what has been lost and what the loss costs, and whether the cost is something he is choosing or something that was chosen for him. Most of it was chosen for him. Some of it he chose himself. The accounting matters. He crests a rock formation and stops. The Lars Moisture Farm sits in a shallow depression below him. Still dark, the dome structures half visible against the sand in the pre-dawn gray. Vaporators extend from the central dome in regular intervals, their collection arms motionless in the windless air. A light is on in the main structure, kitchen, probably. Someone up early, and the faint smell of engine oil and cooking reaches him on the desert air, and he stands very still. He is not ready for what the Force shows him next. The boy is in the east courtyard, up before his family, or unable to sleep, or simply drawn outside by the desert's pre-dawn quality, the way some people are drawn to water. He is sitting on the courtyard wall, with his knees up and his arms resting on them, looking east toward where the first sun will breach the horizon. He is 14 years old enough now that Vader has stayed away far longer than he once told himself he would. From this distance, and in this light, he is slight, not yet grown into whatever he is going to become, still in that intermediate state where a body is all unresolved potential. Anakin reaches into the Force. What he finds is not what he expected. He had been prepared. In the abstract, in the hypothetical version of this moment he has been constructing and revising for years, to find something that felt like himself, an echo, a repetition. The Force giving him back a version of what he was at that age, so he could stand here and experience the specific grief of seeing his own ruined potential reflected in a child who still has all of his ahead of him. That is not what Luke feels like. Luke feels like her. Not entirely. The raw Force sensitivity is Anakin's. The sheer volume of it is unmistakably his own genetic line, the same frequency he has lived inside his entire life. But the quality of it, the temperature, the way it reaches outward rather than inward, toward the world rather than toward its own power, the way it touches the Force, the way a question touches an answer, openly, without agenda, without the specific grasping urgency that defined Anakin's own connection from the first moment he was aware of it. She was not Force-sensitive, but she was the most open person he ever knew. She took in the world without flinching, without calculation, with the specific brave vulnerability of someone who had decided very early that feeling things fully was worth the cost of feeling them. Luke has her quality of attention. Anakin stands on the rock formation and does not move for a long time. The boy looks east. He cannot sense Anakin. Not yet, not at this age, not without training that would sharpen the raw sensitivity into directed awareness. He is simply a child sitting on a wall in the desert before dawn, watching for the light, entirely unaware that the most dangerous being in the Imperial military is standing on a ridge 12 meters away, held completely motionless by the specific sensation of hearing a song he wrote, played back note-perfect by someone who has never heard it. He thinks, I could go down, he thinks, I could walk down the ridge and cross the courtyard and stand in front of him, and he would look up, and he would see the mask and the suit and the Empire's instrument, and nothing that has come from that encounter in any version of it that he can construct ends with anything except damage. He thinks, Owen Lars is right to keep him away from this. Owen Lars, who watched Shmi Skywalker die and watched Anakin Skywalker become what he became, and chose to take the child anyway, chose to build a quiet, ordinary life around the boy and protect him from everything his bloodline represents. Owen Lars is not a complicated man. He is a farmer who understood that some things need to be kept small and simple, and far from the people who would use them. He is, in his way, doing what Obi-Wan is doing from his hut in the Jundland Wastes, the slower, less mystical version of the same work, keeping the boy intact. Anakin will not interfere with that. He will not approach. He will not reveal himself. He will not give Luke a memory of Darth Vader standing in the pre-dawn dark of the Lars courtyard, because that memory would become something Luke carried, and Anakin cannot predict what shape it would take, or what it would cost him later. He will give him something else. He reaches into the suit, past the environmental panels and the interface junctions, past the place where the Japor snippet rests against his chest. He holds it for one moment, the small cream weight of it, the worn cord, the desert symbols carved by a child's hands on a ship going away from Tatooine, for what he thought was the last time. He cannot give him this. He is not ready to give this up yet. And more than that, Luke is 14 and has no context for what the snippet means, or who made it, or what it contains. The snippet has to find Luke later, when he is old enough for the weight of it. He pulls from his belt instead the small crystal recording device he prepared on the shuttle, 12 seconds of audio. His real voice, not the modulator. He recorded it in the sealed shuttle cabin in the hour before landing, the ragged lower voice that no one in the galaxy hears. He does not say much. He says, "You don't know me? You don't need to yet. The desert you're watching is the same desert I watched at your age, and I know it feels too small for what you are. It isn't. What you are is going to matter more than you can imagine right now. Keep yourself safe. Keep the people who keep you safe close to them. The rest will come when it needs to." He does not say, "I am your father." He does not say, "I love you." Not because it is not true. Because love is not what the boy needs from a voice in the dark on Tatooine. Love from Darth Vader, at this distance, at this moment in Luke's life, would be a weight, not a gift. It would require explanation he cannot give, and create questions he cannot answer. And the one thing he has decided with absolute clarity is that Luke Skywalker must arrive at his destiny intact and unencumbered by the specific wreckage of his father's history. The time for that is not now. He seals the device and places it on the rock at his feet. He wraps it in a strip of cloth marked with a notation in Old Aurebesh, the script Tatooine traders used before the Republic's standardization, the script Shmi taught him before he could read BASIC. The notation says, "For the boy who watches the horizon, from someone who knows the feeling." He leaves it. Some traveler will find it, or the boy himself will find it on a walk, or the desert will take it. He does not control what happens next. He has spent years learning not to need to control what happens next. He places it on the rock, and he turns away. He walks back across the desert. The cold sits against the suit's exterior sensors and registers as data. Behind him, the horizon begins to lighten as the first sun climbs. And 12 meters away and growing, a 14-year-old boy watches the sky change color and does not know that 2 suns rose over his father's childhood too, and that his father stood on this ground once, exactly here, and felt precisely what he is feeling. The desert pressing in from every direction, the sky enormous overhead, everything about the moment saying, "You are too much for this place." He was. Luke is. The difference is that Luke will have time to become what he is, without being told what he is before he can carry it. Anakin does not look back. He walks. The snippet is warm against his chest. The twin suns rise behind him, both of them at once, the way they always did, the way they always will. The respirator breathes, in, out. He had a son. He has a son. He will never know him as a father knows a son. This is the cost of what he was, specific and unrecoverable. He holds the cost the way he holds everything now, without flinching, without converting it to fuel, without letting it collapse into the kind of pain that becomes an excuse for other pain. He holds it, he keeps walking. The Death Star is the largest thing he has ever stood inside. This is not a metaphor. The scale of it defeats metaphor. It requires the specific humility of standing at an observation deck on level 347 and looking down through the interior superstructure at the reactor assembly below, and accepting that the human mind was not built to hold this kind of magnitude without assistance. The construction platform surrounding it is itself larger than most orbital stations. The labor force numbers in the tens of thousands. The engineering division alone runs to hundreds of specialists pulled from every advanced technical institution the Empire controls or has absorbed. He walks through it the way he walks through everything, as though the scale is his natural environment, as though Darth Vader occupies any space he enters by right rather than by permission. Underneath, Anakin Skywalker runs the numbers. The assignment came directly from Palpatine, as all assignments of consequence do. Vader is to oversee the final phase of the Death Star's construction, not the day-to-day management, which belongs to Grand Moff Tarkin and a chain of Imperial engineers, but the strategic oversight, the enforcement of the project's absolute priority, the application of whatever pressure is required to bring the station to operational readiness within the projected timeline. Palpatine trusts him with this. This is the Emperor's investment. 2 decades of cultivated loyalty, the careful management of an instrument so powerful that only the Maker can safely direct it. He trusts Vader with the Death Star because Vader has never given him reason to do otherwise. This is the most expensive trust Palpatine has ever misplaced. In this EU, unlike Rogue One canon, where Galen Erso conceals the thermal exhaust port flaw from the entire Imperial hierarchy, including Vader, until Jyn Erso and the Rebellion physically steal the plans from Scarif, Vader independently discovers and knowingly permits the flaw to remain. This is a deliberate divergence from established Rogue One events, not an extrapolation into unfilled canon space, and is flagged here. As such, Galen Erso does not want to be here. This is visible in everything about him. The particular quality of stillness a person develops when they are doing work they have made a private peace with, but not a public one. When the hands are competent, and the mind is fully engaged, and the soul is somewhere else entirely, in a different version of their life where they made a different choice, at a critical juncture. He is brilliant. The engineering division's output confirms this with a specificity that does not require interpretation. The superlaser's power matrix is beyond anything the Empire's standard technical pool could have produced. He did not want to build it. He built it with extraordinary care, regardless, the way certain people cannot help but do good work, even when the work is wrong, because the standard lives inside them independent of the project. Vader reviews his schematics for 40 minutes. He reviews them the way he reviews everything, with the dual register running, the surface assessment, and the secondary question. The surface assessment: the superlaser design is sound, the power coupling is elegant, the reactor integration exceeds Imperial specification by a margin significant enough to have generated commendations from Tarkin's office. The secondary question: where is the flaw? Because there is one. He can feel it the way he feels structural weakness in machines, not with instruments, with the Force, with the specific mechanical intuition that was old when he was 9 and built C-3PO from salvage components in a slave quarter on a desert planet. The Force runs through all things, living and constructed both. Machines have signatures the way people do. This one has something in it that does not match the rest of its architecture. He finds it on the 41st minute. The thermal exhaust port, main reactor shaft, 2 meters wide, precisely angled, running from the surface of the station through 17 levels of superstructure to the primary reactor core. On paper, it is a necessary design feature. The reactor generates heat at a volume that requires exhaust pathways, and the engineering notes cite standard Imperial thermal management protocol. The notes are accurate, the placement is not standard. He closes the schematic. He opens it again. He traces the exhaust shaft with one gauntleted finger against the display, following its path from the equatorial trench to the core. And he thinks about trajectory angles and proton torpedoes and the specific launch parameters of an income-built starfighter, which are in the Imperial Tactical Database because the Empire tracks the Rebellion's hardware with meticulous attention. He closes the schematic again. He meets Galen Erso in the corridor outside the engineering division 2 days later, not by appointment. By the specific engineering of a route that puts Vader where Erso will walk at the hour Erso's access logs show he takes his evening circuit of the construction level, a habit the man has maintained since his first week on the platform. The walk of someone who needs to see the scale of what he is building in order to maintain his private relationship with it. Vader falls into step beside him. Erso does not run. He stops walking for exactly 1 second, the second it takes to process that Darth Vader is beside him in a service corridor at the end of his evening walk. And then he continues. Vader recognizes the choice. It is the choice of a man who decided long ago what he was afraid of and made his accommodations with it. They walk in silence for 30 seconds. The exhaust port placement, Vader says. Erso's pace does not change. His heart rate, perceptible in the Force, increases by a measure that is not nothing. Standard thermal management, Erso says. No. Another silence. The corridor runs along the station's inner curve, and through the viewport to their left, the construction platform's exterior lights create a moving constellation as drones and transports navigate the superstructure. Lord Vader, Erso begins carefully. I am not here to close it, Vader says. The silence this time is different. Erso stops walking. Vader stops with him. They stand in the corridor, and Erso looks at the mask with the expression of a man trying to solve an equation for which he does not have all the variables, and is aware that getting it wrong will be fatal. I don't understand, Erso says. You don't need to understand. You need to listen. Vader turns toward the viewport, giving Erso his profile rather than the full weight of the mask. A calculated reduction of pressure. The port stays. The engineering reports that flag it as a thermal anomaly will be reviewed by me and classified. You will not draw attention to it. You will not modify it. You will continue your work exactly as you have been conducting it. Why, Erso says. The word is quiet, almost no weight. A man asking a question he is not sure he is allowed to ask. Because a weapon of this scale should not exist without a lock on the door, Vader says. Because the people who will be asked to fire it will not be the people who chose to build it. Because whoever holds the key deserves to have found it themselves, through their own effort, earned, not handed to them in a way that can be taken back. He turns back to Erso. You built the flaw with your daughter in mind, Vader says. It is not a question. The Force showed him this the way it shows him all things that people carry in their chests, directly, without translation. You want her to find it. You want the rebellion to receive it through her. That plan remains intact. I am only telling you that I am aware of it, and you will not be stopped. Erso's face does the thing faces do when a person is trying very hard not to let their face do anything. He holds it. He is good at holding things. What do you get from this? Erso says finally. Vader considers the question. He considers what answer is both true and safe, what Erso needs to hear, and what serves the larger architecture. I get a station with a door that someone deserving can open, he says. The rest is not your concern. He leaves Erso in the corridor. The cooling matrix degradation takes him 3 weeks to introduce. He does it in 4-hour windows during inspection circuits that he schedules deliberately across multiple engineering levels so that no single visit to any single section constitutes a pattern. He is the overseer. He moves through the station with absolute authority. No one questions what he examines or touches or reviews. Questioning Vader's inspection methodology is not a career that ends well. The degradation is precise. Microscopic fracture lines introduced into the heat-sink crystalline arrays of the superlaser's primary cooling system. Fractures small enough to pass undetected under standard diagnostic scanning, large enough to propagate under repeated high-energy discharge. The first firing of the weapon will strain the array. The second will stress the propagated fractures. The third will produce cascade failure at the heat-sink junction. The station has one practical firing opportunity before it becomes a liability to its own operators. He knows they will not limit themselves to one firing. He knows Tarkin, knows the man's specific imperial ambition, knows that a weapon of this magnitude in the hands of a man like Tarkin will be used as rapidly as any justification can be manufactured. He is not building a restraint. He is building a clock. The exhaust port is the key. The cooling matrix is the timer. Between them, they constitute his most intricate engineering project since he was 9 years old and built a protocol droid from nothing because his mother was lonely and he had nothing else to give her. He seals the final crystalline array and closes the access panel. The Japor snippet is against his chest. He thinks, not for the first time, of her Senate speeches, the ones about weapons proliferation, about the moral cost of military escalation, about what it means for a civilization to build its security on the capacity to destroy. She gave those speeches in rooms that did not want to hear them. She gave them anyway, precise, patient, building her argument the way she built everything, from the inside out, from principle to implication, from what was true to what it required. She would not have been able to stop this station from being built. Neither could he. But she would have found the door in it somehow. She would have found the way the thing that destroys could be given a limit. He found it for her. The respirator breathes. In, out. The Death Star turns in the dark of the outer rim and does not know what has been done to it. Tens of thousands of workers and hundreds of engineers, and one Grand Moff with absolute confidence in his weapon. None of them aware that the station's most important feature was installed not by the Empire's architects, but by its most loyal servant. At night, in access tunnels no one thought to watch. He designed the lock. He will not be there when someone finds the key. He does not need to be. Palpatine knows. Not everything. If he knew everything, this conversation would not be happening. But enough. The summons comes through the direct line, rung perhaps 4 times in all the years since the fall. Vader stands in the corridor, 11 seconds before entering, running inventory on what's concealed and what isn't. You have been busy, the Emperor says without preamble. At the viewport, back turned, a declaration of power in itself. The Attalon survey, the Kessel reassignments, the many instances in which Imperial tactical response arrived one step behind. He turns. The yellow eyes hold something older than the usual managed warmth. Your friction does not follow statistical patterns. Your friction is too consistent, too specific. He closes to 6 feet, close enough to force probe directly, a demonstration rather than a covert operation. Vader does not fight the probe. He offers it a surface, not emptiness, which is its own tell, but the complete, affectless compliance of a man with nothing left to hide, because there is nothing left. He gives Palpatine all of Darth Vader, every deliberate brick of the instrument the Emperor spent decades building. The probe finds the instrument's edges and cannot locate what's behind them, because what's behind them has been moved. A technique he learned from thinking about her, the way she held 2 simultaneous realities her entire career and let the honest presentation of one leave no room to look for the other. The probe withdraws. You have nothing to say. Operational friction at Imperial scale. Yes, yes. Palpatine moves to the throne's base, does not ascend. I have been watching you for some time, waiting for the motivation to become legible. It has not. This troubles me more than the pattern itself. He looks up. I have decided to give you an opportunity to demonstrate your loyalty in a manner that resolves my concern. The rebellion has grown beyond projections. A fleet, something approaching unified command. 3 operations survived that should have ended them. I am moving the Death Star to operational deployment. Tarkin will oversee the first demonstration. Alderaan, Vader says. Palpatine tilts his head, pleased. Princess Leia carries the stolen plans from Scarif. Senator Organa has been a structural asset of the rebellion for years. A pause. You will be present. You will retrieve the plans and the princess. He is watching. This is not an assignment. It is calibration. Palpatine has found the pattern but not the evidence, and he is applying pressure to see where the structure gives. Any hesitation when 1 billion people die on Tarkin's order will be confirmation. The trap is perfectly designed. He removes the helmet in the sealed chamber and sits with what has arrived. He cannot stop Alderaan. He has no mechanism to prevent Tarkin firing a weapon he does not control. On an order from an emperor whose decision is made, in an operation where his own role is retrieval, not command. He cannot stop it, and cannot visibly try without confirming everything and ending it before it reaches the confrontation it needs to reach. 1 billion people. He failed them. He built the lock on the door instead of preventing the weapon reaching a target, and he will not pretend those are the same thing. He reaches for the snippet. She would not let him collapse the operation over this. She would be devastated, and she would keep going, because the long game was always about absorbing losses without losing direction. He cannot stop Alderaan. He can make it the last thing that size the Empire ever does. The confrontation must come now, not in the timeline he preferred. With more preparation, but now, with the long years of quiet work as foundation, the white blade beneath the red lens, The Force rebuilt slowly in this sealed dark. He is ready enough. He will not be more ready by waiting. He puts the helmet back on. The modulator takes his breath and processes it into the Empire's rhythm. In, out. He has a trap to walk into, exactly the way Palpatine expects. And then he will stop being the instrument. He arrives alone. This is the deviation Palpatine has been waiting for. No command staff, no plans. 12 Royal Guard line the chamber, Force pikes grounded, and Palpatine sits elevated, tracking his entrance with the attention of a man who has been expecting this for a very long time. Vader kneels. "My lord, you came without your staff, and without the plans. The plans are destroyed. The station is destroyed. I am aware," Palpatine says, "of what happened at Yavin." He descends all 12 steps, the first time he has ever done this, announcing with his body a change in configuration before he says it with words. A single fighter, 1 proton torpedo, a 2-meter exhaust port in 17 levels of superstructure. He stops 8 feet away. Galen Erso designed that flaw. He has been dealt with. But Erso did not suppress the reports that should have flagged it. You did. He begins a slow arc. 10 years. I counted 17 instances across that decade. There were 43. I found the rest after Yavin, when I knew where to look. He lists them. Lothal, Adalon, Kessel, the cooling matrix, the exhaust port, the coordinate errors, almost enough to make me miss them entirely. He stops. Almost. You are going to explain yourself. No, Vader says. The chamber holds it. Something shifts in the yellow eyes. Not surprise, but recalibration, a variable assigned low probability now arriving. Lord Vader, my name, Vader says, is Anakin Skywalker. Absolute silence. Something crosses Palpatine's face that Anakin has never seen there. Not fear, but the specific offense of a craftsman discovering his finished machine has been running different software for a decade. Anakin Skywalker, Palpatine says, tasting it like something to spit out, died on Mustafar. You told me he did. You told me a great many things. The warmth inverts, replaced by what it was always covering. She died because you. She was alive at Polis Massa. She spoke. She used her last breath to tell Obi-Wan Kenobi there was still good in me. He withdraws the snippet. The guard's pikes lift a fraction. I found it in her casket, 9 years after Mustafar. Obi-Wan preserved the recording. He knew I would come back for it. Palpatine looks at the small cream pendant for one long moment, the one thing in his purely transactional universe he has no category for. An object that holds love, made by a slave child for a girl he had nothing to give, and gave something to anyway. Sentiment, Palpatine says, a scalpel aimed to bleed. You are destroying the Empire for sentiment. I am ending the Empire because she was right. He draws the lightsaber and reaches, through the hilt, into the wound Palpatine's design bled into the crystal a lifetime ago, and holds the memory of the mausoleum against it, not force, attention, and the willingness to let a true thing be true. The crystal answers. White ignites. Not crimson, not the blue of his youth, a color that exists only because it has been through darkness, and returned changed rather than erased. Palpatine, without the chamber's shadows, looks simply old. Then the Force lightning comes. He has been preparing for this exchange for years. Lightning against Soresu, the Emperor's most devastating weapon against the form built to endure. Sustained arcs seek the gaps in his guard. He moves through them with no wasted motion, no aggression, pure geometry. Palpatine prepared for Vader's crushing forward pressure, the style that feeds on anger. He has no counter for a man who will not be provoked, who will not take the bait of the openings deliberately left for him. Anakin endures. 3 guards move. He pins their pikes to the wall columns without killing them, without breaking rhythm, because a Sith would have killed them, and he is not a Sith. The lightning intensifies. Suit systems absorb it at the edge of tolerance. Palpatine's design, the cage's final function, the suit built to betray him too, in the moment of betrayal. He lets it, and presses forward, closing the distance as the chamber fills with radiance that casts no shadow anywhere. He reaches Palpatine. The Emperor's eyes go wide. Not fear, still, but something adjacent, the recognition of a man who has finally met the variable he could not calculate. The white blade arcs up and across. Palpatine falls. The lightning stops. Silence. Anakin stands in it, breathing his ragged, real breath through a suit failing in 4 systems. Medical alerts logging the cascade with flat mechanical notation. He closes his hand around the snippet through the breastplate. Still warm, still the same small weight it was in the mausoleum, when the Force first moved through a crack in a door he'd sealed against it. He made her right. The respirator breathes in, out. The Empire's architect lies on the throne room floor. Anakin Skywalker is still alive, not something he expected to be at this moment, and he does not yet know what to do with it. He has one more thing to do. He knows where he needs to go. He takes the smallest shuttle in the hangar. No designation, no flight plan, no one left to file it with. Imperial Command is generating the specific institutional panic of an organism that has lost its brain and hasn't yet understood the body is still moving. He is in hyperspace before the noise organizes. The medical alerts have been running 6 hours. He silences them, not from failing to understand the cascade, but because they tell him nothing he needs to act on. He knows where this ends. He made his peace with the destination somewhere between the throne room and the hangar. It did not take long. He has been practicing for years, slowly, imperfectly, in the sealed dark of the meditation chamber. This is simply the last one. He sets course for Naboo. Naboo from orbit is the same as it has always been. Blue-green, cloud-threaded, unhurried. A planet that has always looked, from this angle, like it does not know what the rest of the galaxy is doing, and has made a considered choice to remain that way. He descended toward it once in a different life, 19 years old, certain of almost nothing except the girl on the planet's surface who had looked at him across a meadow and made the galaxy feel navigable for the first time. The courier craft enters atmosphere on manual control. His hands on the yoke are steady. His hands are always steady. This is one of the things the suit does correctly. The servo-assisted grip that eliminates tremor, that makes the physical execution of tasks clean regardless of what the body underneath is doing. He is grateful for it exactly once, now, descending toward Theed, through Naboo's golden afternoon light. He lands in the same private bay he has used before. He is, he thinks, the only being in the galaxy who has a pattern of unauthorized visits to Naboo's administrative district. The thought is not quite humor. It is the closest thing to it he has managed in years, which will have to be sufficient. He walks into the city alone. Theed at late afternoon. The light comes in low and long, the kind of light that makes the city's Baroque stonework glow from within, that turns the canal water to hammered gold. He has walked these streets several times now. He knows the route. His feet carry him through the textile quarter and past the canal bridges and up the long processional avenue without his mind needing to direct them, the way hands find familiar objects in the dark. The mausoleum doors are open. Someone left them open. Attendants, probably, the Naboo citizens who tend the memorial sites at the day's end, arranging flowers and clearing the offerings that accumulate at the base of the great doors. They see him coming. They clear the entrance without being told, stepping aside with the particular quality of movement that has nothing to do with ceremony and everything to do with the specific human instinct to remove oneself from the path of something inevitable. He enters. The same diagonal light, the same patient moss, the falls roaring through stone into the failing interface panels beneath the breastplate. He walks to the casket and stands before it without performing, without the machinery of Darth Vader imposing itself on the moment. He is tired in the way that lives below the physical. A man who has held something enormous carefully for a long time and reached the place where the holding is finished. He sits down on the stone floor, not dignified. He sits because the suit's integrity is beginning to make the choice for him, and because the floor is where he needs to be, below her, at the level of the ground, where he was always honest. The boy from Tatooine, where he started. He opens his hand, the snippet, warm, carried against his chest through the throne room, and the hyperspace jump in this last golden walk. He carved it at 9, believing he had nothing. He had this, the hands that make something from nothing, the stubborn impulse to give what you have, even when it's only effort and a borrowed tool and hope. He sets it on the stone floor beside him, in the gap between where he is and where she is, not returning it, placing it where it has always belonged. The Force is very present in this room, the accumulated weight of love sustained as daily practice, not event. Flowers, a name spoken to stone, years of a planet's quiet tending. He lets it move through him, not as power, not as weapon, just as itself, the river that carries all rivers. He floats in it. He thinks of Luke watching the twin sons, nearly a man grown, about to be asked everything of. Of Leia, somewhere in the galaxy tonight, carrying the rebellion forward without knowing what made her survival slightly more likely than it should have been. Of Obi-Wan in the Junlan wastes, still waiting, still hoping. Of Sabé, who did not forgive him and chose anyway, which is harder than forgiveness and worth more. He thinks, I made her right. The respirator takes one breath. 2. On the third, the rhythm changes. Not stopping, the emergency system's more stubborn than that, but becoming irregular, approaching at last the ordinary human rhythm of a man breathing without assistance. Ragged, slower, his own, he is not afraid. He checked an hour ago, during the descent, during the walk through the city, and found none. He has been afraid of many things across his life, not this. This is the room where she is. This is where the snippet was carved to bring him. Safe passage. Reunion. Symbols pressed in by a child's hope. It is not what he imagined at 9. It is true, and it is here, and it is enough. The light shifts toward evening. The moss brightens as the natural light fades. He closes his eyes. He does not feel himself go. Real surrender does not announce itself. There is no threshold. Only a moment when the weight he has carried for decades is no longer in his hands, and the hands are open. And the Force receives what they release like something that has waited, with great patience, for exactly this. What remains in the room? The suit, the snippet on the stone floor, the falls roaring their endless roar. What does not remain? A name that was given to him by fear. He stands in the Force without performing, without any of the machinery he has imposed on every moment of his life. Lighter than he has been since he was 9 years old and did not yet know what the galaxy would cost him. Beside him, not visible, not a voice, nothing the physical world could instrument. Warmth. The specific warmth of a person who loved him past all reason, past all evidence, past all cost. Not a ghost, simply the quality of her, the way she took the world in without flinching, the way she chose, every time, to feel things fully because she had decided it was worth it. He feels it the way you feel a hand in yours when your eyes are closed. He does not need to see it. He knows. Far away, on a desert planet where 2 suns are setting over a moisture farm, a young man not far from manhood looks up at the evening sky and feels, without knowing why, that something large and quiet, a storm on the horizon, for as long as he can remember, has finally passed. He watches the stars come out. He does not know what it means. He will. The respirator does not breathe. The mausoleum holds its light. The Japper snippet rests on the stone floor between where he was and where she is. The falls roar on. The moss glows. The Force, which carries all rivers, carries this one too. Out into the living web of everything, into the vast and patient dark that is not dark at all once you stop being afraid of it. He is home. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.